Hello and good morning. I'm Angelina, and welcome to a special edition of the Good Morning Minute. Throughout our series, Flowers Are Red, Seen Beyond the Box, we've explored how our experiences, relationships, fears, and expectations can shape the way we see ourselves, other people, and even God. The title comes from the idea that we are sometimes taught there is only one right way to see, think, lead, heal, or live. But growth begins when we become curious enough to look beyond what we have already always known. So today I am joined by Kim, and she is going to share her experiences with us in our Good Morning Minutes. I say, welcome to the show, Kim. How are
Thank-
you?
I'm good. Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you on the show to talk a little bit about your perspectives and what growth looks like from your eyes and from your journey. But before we jump into all of that, why don't you just give us a little bit of information about yourself? Tell us about your work that you do and what matters most important to you.
Sure. Well, my name's Kim. Like she said, I'm a writer from Central Iowa. I actually also work in a library, which is where I'm at right now. I just got off of work and so I'm in an office here in a small library. Um, I'm married to Corey. We've been married for 27 years. We have three boys. Our youngest just graduated and moved out of the house, so we're newly empty nesters. So that's going to be interesting adjustment for us, but it'll be good. And I am a two-time breast cancer survivor. So I was first diagnosed with breast cancer 1 month after my 40th birthday. And then 7 years later, almost to the day, I was diagnosed again. That was at age 47, and I've been cancer-free for 3 years now. And yeah, there's a lot of growing happens when you go through hard things like that. Um, with myself, and then also just as a family, and learning what faith really looks like, and how to really lean into God when things don't go the way you want them to. Uh, so. Out of that, I have written two books. The first one is called Life Reconstructed, and it's for women going through mastectomies and breast reconstruction, and it's really a guidebook for just all the what you go through emotionally, physically, spiritually, psychologically. And then recently, about 8 months ago, my second book called Carried Through Cancer came out, and that is a series of stories about um, based on interviews I've done with women who have walked through breast cancer and caregivers that have walked through it as well. So that's kind of who I am and what I do.
Wow. Well, there's a lot there that we definitely can unpack as we continue on with our conversation. But just on the lighter side of things, empty nesting. I'm familiar with it now. I've been empty nesting for 2 years, and a grandparent. So that's
Ah,
the next phase that I'm stepping into. So I understand the awkwardness that it brings when you empty nest, but also the opportunity that it brings being able to do more with time that wasn't already devoted to
yeah.
children. Although I have discovered they never truly leave the nest because they always sometimes come back,
Yes.
things like that. So awesome. Well, okay, so let's jump into it a little bit more. When you hear, and this is kind of the question I ask everyone that joins the podcast, is when you hear the phrase "flowers are red," what does it mean to you personally?
Flowers are red. Well, I it's interesting because you think automatically roses are red, but flowers are not all red. So, um, I think some flowers are red and beautiful, but there's so much variety out there. So it's interesting to hear flowers are red as opposed to um, roses are red. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, and I thank you for sharing that because yes, you automatically gravitate to the rose, which is a symbolic for love and the big flower that's sold on Valentine's Day. But what has spun this series for me was a conversation I had with a mentor of mine, and he had mentioned this song, Flowers Are Red, and it really is about a little boy who is coloring these flowers and they're red, and the teacher basically comes over in the song and is telling him like, that's not the color of flowers. And so now he starts questioning everything that he thought to be true. And so it leads me to my next question. What was one of the earliest boxes or perceptions you remember being placed in, whether that be by your family, community, culture, school, church, or workplace?
I don't know about the earliest, but I would think one of the boxes I've had to learn to get out of is that box of okay, this hard thing happened, but the reason is because there's something better ahead for me, which often is the case. But it's like that, okay, you're going through this, but you're going through this because there's this beautiful thing on the other side. And um, I've learned that that doesn't always necessarily happen. I it sometimes does, but it also sometimes those suffering things they linger on and on and on. And so I try to be careful with people about how I talk. I am very thankful that I'm cancer free, but I have many people in my life since I've been in the cancer world for years and years who are they've stage 4 diagnosis and will be treated for the rest of their lives. So it's a God can use it and he can make things beautiful, but he's not necessarily going to take this hard thing away. You might walk through it for the rest of your life. Um, when I was walking through my second diagnosis with cancer, I was in the middle of chemo, and our youngest, our middle son was 20 at the time, 20, 21, got very, very sick and was ultimately diagnosed with an autoimmune disease. So we have that too, and that's something that he will always have now. It's managed and he's doing well, but that was another reminder, just like the cancer was, that it's not always, oh, you got this hard thing to get through and then it's going to be great on the other side. Sometimes it's you've got this hard life, this hard thing in your life, and it's always going to be there. What are you going to do with it? So I think that's been a really a big adjustment for my mind, just to wrap around that. Like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do with my faith if I always have cancer? Um, and I want to say I trust Jesus, but when you're in that, sometimes it's hard.
Yeah, no, and that's fair. I think that is a very real feeling and thought going through hard things such as cancer. And so, I mean, when you were given that diagnosis, obviously there's some type of perception or even expectations that are placed on you. How did that affect how you saw yourself?
Um, wow, how did being diagnosed? I'm I'm not sure if it changed a whole lot about how I saw myself. I guess it affected um how I thought about my mortality, where going through life up to cancer. You know, I've gone through little hard things here and there, but nothing has hit me quite like that. And you're staring your mortality in the face. And so I think that's what it did was had me have to really think about how I felt about my life and mortality. And okay, I'm not gonna be here forever. So what do I want to do with the time that I've got? Um, that was probably one of the bigger things for me.
Okay. And I mean, I guess walking through that too, I mean, getting hit with this huge diagnosis because it's going to require such a healing process in itself, right? The physical healing with, I'm assuming medications, maybe chemo, those types of things. I'm sure there was a point where you were like, kind of maybe, and I mean, and maybe not, I don't know, going back and gravitating to what was more comfortable to you, what felt normal to you, but it wasn't going to give you the results that you wanted. So, not necessarily being a healthy choice in that manner. How did you walk yourself through that? What was that journey like?
I think a lot of it is just really not looking too far ahead,
Mhm.
knowing what the plan is and the treatment is, but just focusing on, okay, what do I need to do this day? Not, okay, I've got 16 rounds of chemo ahead of me. I am never going to make it. I just want to. go back. I want to go back to what it was before. I don't want to have this. But when I could really just stay in today and just take little bites out of it, that really helped me um, to move forward, to get through it. And speaking of chemo, it was like 4.5 months, I think, that I was in that, and I had a countdown, and I would check it off, and that was really helpful for me to just, okay, I'm in today, I can check this one off, and to see that progress was really helpful. You do sometimes think, oh, life was easier before, but
Mm-hmm.
you can't go back. So, just take each day as it comes and try to do my best with it, I guess.
Yeah, no, that's pretty good because I feel like being present, right? Because I've heard people say the past is over, it's already happened, and the future really just depends on what you're doing in this moment today, right? So being present and being attuned to your journey, I'm sure helped both mentally, spiritually, and physically because you're just embracing that journey as well. What was it like getting the second diagnosis? Because like you get through the first one, right? And that's a challenge within itself. But then to get hit again with that same situation, like what was that like for you?
I mean, it was hard.
Sure.
It was different. It was different in that um, I was the fear came in a different way. So when you're first diagnosed, like the first time I was diagnosed, I'd never been very close to anybody who had had cancer except for my mother-in-law. Um, and it was so scary. That word was so scary and uncomfortable for me.
Mhm.
Um, but then the second time around, when I learned that I had cancer again, I in some ways it was easier because it was like, okay, I've been through this. I know what's coming. I know I know what the oncology floor looks like. I know my doctors. I know a lot of things I didn't know before, and that made it less scary in that way because it wasn't new. But I the fear in that time came when I didn't know how far it had progressed. So the first time I learned pretty early on that I was stage one, and so my treatment was easier than some. And then this time, I had found a lump in my armpit, and that was scary to me because I thought, okay, if it's there already, is it all over my body? And so my fear was, am I stage four? How much time do I have left? And then you have this waiting game before you know how far it's progressed. And thankfully, it was stage two, and I still had to go through chemo and radiation and surgeries and whatnot. But I just remember the relief I felt when they didn't tell me it was stage four because I did have that fear that, oh no, it's back. That means it's all over. Um, so yeah, that was how the fear landed the second time around.
Wow. And thank you for, being honest and opening up and sharing. So in this difficult experience, how did it influence the way you related to other people?
I have more compassion, I think, for other people now, who are going through hard things. I think once you've gone through something really hard, you're more in tune to what other people are going through. And so yeah, I have more compassion. I try to reach out when I find somebody is newly diagnosed. I try to just say, "Hey, I'm available." Like I've stayed in that cancer world partly for that reason, just so I can be a resource to other people. Some people don't want to do that. They get out of cancer world and they're out, and that's fine. But that is one thing I think that I can just empathize with people better. I think just to broaden that, I think that changed for my whole family, for my husband, for my kids, that wow, they watch me go through something hard, and it gave them more compassion as well for others, and just a really kind of a reality check in life. Like, okay, hard things happen to people. I'm going to be aware of that, and I'm going to encourage people when they're walking through something hard.
Wow, I think it's a beautiful thing when people walking through their most difficult moments in life and in the healing journey of it all, discover that they can also be help to another person that may be just starting in a moment that's similar to their own. And I think that's why we're here, right? Is to help encourage other people and help be a light in someone else's darkness, and have that purpose, because I think that's what God wants us to do. God wants us to be there for others and encourage others through the difficult moments, because we live in a very hard world. I mean, life will happen whether we want it or not. And it will be unexpected or expected in those situations that occur. What was your faith journey like in these moments? Like, did you question, why me? Because I know sometimes when I've had hard moments, I'm like, why me? God, why me? What was that like for you?
Um, I it definitely deepened my faith. It's um I don't know that I ever said why me, but I know I said how. How am I going to do this? When I was first diagnosed, when I turned 40, obviously I didn't want to be diagnosed. I might have asked why, but more at that point, I thought, my life has been really easy. Like I got through 4 decades with really very little hardship in my life. And it was more of, okay, I guess this is my hard thing. But how in the world am I going to do this? Like how, Lord, more than the why. And that was also a daily, you just taking it day by day, and trusting that he'll provide. And, some days were better than others. I definitely had some days of feeling sorry for myself and being whiny and um, not wanting to do what I had to do, um, in both diagnoses. But uh, I feel like just through that hard stuff, God makes himself so available and so he shows himself so clearly, I think, in hard times, that if we're paying attention, we can see answers to prayers and we can see direction from him that when life is going smoothly, I might not even pay attention to, but I'm just hyper focused on what's at hand and hyper focused at, okay, Lord, this is what I'm asking. What do you have for me here? And just seeing him, you know, over and over just show me how real he is, that I came out the other side just with a stronger faith. And just one little story about that, the after my first bout with cancer, when I was writing my first book, I started praying to God that he would provide a medical professional to go through some of the information with me, so I knew that what I had in there was accurate. And I cold called a surgeon's office, a breast surgeon in Iowa, and she said, let's get together and talk. So we did. She went through chapter by chapter with me, and we got together multiple times. We became pretty good friends. And then 7 years later, I find a lump, and the first person I call is Dr. Beck. And I I know her, and she's my friend now, and it's because of my first battle with cancer. And she's the woman who called to tell me I had cancer again. And she was my surgeon who removed my tumor. So I'm wheeled into the surgery room, and the last face I see is my friend's. And wow, like that is just an example of how God cares for you in these really hard places. And so that's kind of a long story to say, watch, and he will take care of you. And so my faith has just been strengthened a lot, because of walking through cancer. So.
I love that you shared that moment. I mean, I could just feel it's like a God moment. And even in your question, like, for me in a point of my life when I'm asking why, because then it's like feeling like, okay, here we go again. God, another thing, why me? But the question that you're asking is how do I get through this, Lord? It just tells me so much about the relationship that you have with God. There is so much trust in this, that you're like leaning on him and going, okay, this is the struggle. So how are we going to walk through it together? So I think that is significant in this journey, because for you to be able to lean spiritually on your faith and say, I know that God's going to be there with me. I know he's going to walk through with me. I know it's going to be hard, and he's going to answer those questions of how do we get through this? How do we get through that? And he has to even so much so give you a friend who has the knowledge and to also be the surgeon in the second situation, how he prepares the way to secure your outcomes. I love it. I think that is such a God moment. It's so beautiful. And thank you so much for sharing. So it as you come out of it, you've written this book. You've written two books. Let's
Mhm.
talk a little bit about that. How was the first book for you? What was what was the mindset behind that first book?
The first book, really the mindset was, okay, there are a lot of really hard things that you walk through when you learn that it's recommended you have your breasts removed.
Mm,
So,
yeah.
um, that was that book. I learned so many things about, um, well, really, even just the physical part of it, like how to deal with healing and um, how to get through the surgery. And so there's that part of it. But there was also this whole psychological and emotional arena I dealt with. And a body image was a big thing for me that I really kind of hit me by surprise. I thought, I don't need my breasts, but then it ended up being very hard. And so I just had all of these ideas of, okay, this part of it was really hard. And then it was, my kids, I had boys in middle school at the time and one in elementary school. And how do I talk to them about this? And how much information do I even give them? And do they want to know? This is so weird to talk about to mom about. So just a lot of things I learned, and decided to just put them down by topic. And um, yeah, thankfully was able to find a publisher who said, yes, this is a good idea and went ahead and did it. And I put that out there really just hoping to help some other people who are faced with my situation, to have some of that information at the outset that I learned along the way. And in that book too, I did, like I said, I talked to my Dr. Beck, and also had input from other medical professionals and women who've been through it. So that was really what the first one was. And then the second book is a very different book. It is devotional. It's 70 days. There's 50 days of cancer fighter and survivor stories, and then 10 days of caregiver stories, and 10 are my own personal stories. And it's roughly broken into weeks. So 5 survivor stories, then a caregiver, and then one of mine. Um, and they're all based on interviews. I interviewed people all over the country, different stages, different ages, different types of cancer. And we talked about God stories within their cancer, kind of like the Dr. Beck story I just shared. In fact, that's one of my stories in there. But just um, so we have this book that people can pick up in a very scary time and see God in all these people's lives. Like, okay, they went through this, and this is where God showed up. And there's scripture and prayers and things in there as well, but I wanted it to be just encouragement in a hard time. And so that's what the second one is.
I love it. So, what would you say, Kim, to someone who may be walking through a similar situation, but is afraid of what would happen, what and how to respond to their situation? What kind of words would you give to them?
Mhm. Fear is very natural, I would say. I'd say it is okay to be scared. And it is okay to take that fear to God. And it is okay to tell him that you're not okay with this. It's okay to be angry. All of the emotions that come with such a scary diagnosis, God created us. He created emotions. So I just tell people it's okay to feel what you're feeling. But take those things to God and tell him, be honest, be mad. He can handle it, and ask him to show you what to do. Um, and he will, and it's different for each person, and each person's outcome is different too. Um, but I would say that it's okay to feel the feelings. I would also say, find your people and get that support system. Those people that will encourage you, those people that will let you be mad and sad and angry, but won't let you stay there. Because that's an important thing too. It's okay to have all the feelings, but it's also important to try to work through those and get to a place. You don't have to be okay with the fact that you have cancer, but get to a place where you are you're gonna go through this, you're gonna do the things you need to do, um, and just take it one step at a time.
Okay. Well, Kim, as we start rounding out our conversation, I have a sentence I'd like you to complete. So I'll start it off, and then as I pause, I want you to fill in the blank. And it's kind of a two-part sentence. So the first part is, I once believed,
I once believed I would cruise through life.
but now I understand.
Life is really hard.
It is so hard. And so as we close, what is one perspective shift or practical step you would invite our listeners to take today so they can begin seeing beyond their box?
I would say just look at the world around you, um, and open, just don't be so focused on yourself, but really uh, understand that uh, God has you here for a purpose, a reason, and that He will not leave you, but He has also put you here. I believe, to serve other people and to teach other people and to be an encouragement to other people. Um, so maybe this really hard thing you're walking through is going to be something that is going to really bless someone else, and you're not going to be able to be that blessing if you don't walk through this first.
Such good and wise words. Kim, if someone is listening out there and they're like, oh, I would love to touch base with you or get to know you or maybe even purchase your books, where can they find you? Where can they find your books?
Sure. I do have a website and it's just kimharms.com. You can find me on there. There's actually a website devoted to my second book, and it's called carriedthroughcancer.com. I'm pretty active on Instagram at Kim Harms Author, also on Facebook at Kim Harms Author. So you can find me at any of those places and feel free to reach out, and I will get back to you if you do reach out to me through my website or any of my social media. So.
Wonderful. Well, Kim, I want to say thank you so much for sharing your story, your wisdom, and your perspective with us today. Your journey reminds us that growth begins when we become willing to question the limits we have accepted and allow God to show us something new. To everyone listening, take a moment to ask yourself, what box have I been living in, and what might become possible if I allowed myself to see differently? Remember, flowers do not have to be red, leaves do not have to be green, and your future does not have to be limited by what you have experienced, what others have called you, or what you once believed about yourself. Friends, I want you to stay curious, stay teachable, stay rooted in truth, and give yourself and others the grace to grow. Until next time, friends, I'm Angelina, your life coach, sending you much love, much peace, many blessings.